My name is Christopher. I have HSV2 down here. And disclaimer, this is not medical advice. If you want less information, talk to a doctor. Okay, I want to talk today about everything that's wrong with the medical industry when it comes to herpes. Now, this is not bashing on the medical industry. There are some great doctors out there, but there's also some not great doctors out there. And I want to talk about the issues I've encountered when it comes to herpes. So first things first, herpes is not part of the standard STI panel, but it's not even made clear that that's the case. So when you get tested for, I want to be tested for everything. What they should do is just put a little list of, hey, this is what you're tested for today. This is what you're not tested for. Because I guarantee that a lot of people just assume they're tested for herpes when they do a full panel, when the smallest little thing could have been, hey, like, you're not tested for this, just so you know. So when your test results come back, you're not necessarily negative for herpes as well. Just a small thing like that. There are also doctors that are so behind on either testing or diagnosis or knowledge about herpes that they're doing things incorrectly. Now, there's two different blood tests. There's an IgM and an IgG. The IgM has no way of differentiating HSV1 from HSV2. So if you have either one, which most people get cold sores, it's going to come back as you have herpes, but you have no idea where it's going to be or what type. And that's kind of important. The other thing is that the IgM blood tests, which are probably still used somewhere in some clinics that you've probably taken, can get some cross-reactivity from other herpes viruses, like the one that causes chickenpox or possibly Epstein-Barr. There's other herpes viruses that can like trigger your HSV to show up as positive. So those are terrible tests, the IgM. IgG blood tests are a lot more accurate, I guess, but still not perfect and still not as accurate as if you were to do a swab test or a confirmation test like a Western blot blood test. But that's hard to get your hands on it, and it's not available at most clinics. Now, those are the two issues there, where it's like you're not informed, you're not tested for it, and some people can still have terrible testing. Now, another situation I ran into recently was a girl messaged me and said, I had an outbreak, but the doctor like wouldn't test. They just kind of looked at it. And like, I think it's important for doctors to like do as much as they can in terms of testing to get an accurate response, even if there is symptoms there, because some doctors aren't even doing swab tests. They're just doing a physical examination and saying, here, take some antivirals. And to the medical community, it's not a big deal to them because herpes is not going to have any lifelong consequences. And most people just don't have frequent outbreaks. And it just is so common that they don't bat their eye at it. But I don't think a lot of them understand like the psychological impact of like a positive test. Or like, hey, you have herpes now. You have this label. And doctors are just like, it's so common, it's so nonchalant, like take some antivirals and go. And I see it from both sides, okay? A lot of us feel super sad, but you also have to think about like doctors are so seeing this so commonly, and maybe they understand about the like psychosocial or psychological aspect, and they don't want to spend the time consoling you. Like it takes up extra time, and I think they should have more compassion, but I also think that like, you know, they can't just be a therapist. I'd like them to be a therapist, but they can't. And like, I think that being sort of nonchalant about it kind of saves them the opportunity of having to like deal with the questions or the psychological impact. But I think a lot more care should be put into the psychological diagnosis when you get a positive test result. The other thing I noticed is that someone said like, hey, the doctor didn't swab me because I had genital herpes, and if I have a genital herpes infection, it's HSV2, so you don't have to tell the type. And that's actually incorrect, because a lot of genital herpes cases now are HSV1. And when it comes to HSV1 versus HSV2 down here, there actually is going to be somewhat of a difference. You're probably going to shed HSV1 genitally far less than HSV2. So transmission rate in general is going to be decreased. Talk to your doctor though. I'm not a doctor, but I believe that that is true. You are going to shed the virus without symptoms less when it comes to HSV1. And you're probably only going to have like one outbreak at the most, maybe a couple more, but probably on average less outbreaks over time with HSV1 down here than HSV2. So for someone just finding out about their herpes, it's important to figure out, do I need medication long term to keep my transmission rate down, or do I even need medication for my potentially frequent outbreaks? Or what does this mean in terms of transmission rate or shedding, or like typing the genital herpes matters? And I think a lot of old school doctors don't even know that HSV1 is a common occurrence genitally now. So those are just some things I have, I guess, issues with the medical community. I hope we can make some differences, and I hope that doctors can, I don't know, at least consider the psychological aspect and then maybe refresh their knowledge or refresh just anything. But if there's one thing I could ask, the smallest possible thing of the medical community, just tell us what you're being tested for when you do an STI panel. Just include the possibility that herpes is not there, so everyone is not surprised when they're not tested for it, and everyone can kind of go in with the idea of like, hey, I've been tested for this, but I don't actually know what my herpes status is. Because the sooner everyone just stops realizing, like, if they've never got a positive test result for herpes doesn't mean they don't have it. That's all I'm going to say. Just make it clear that no one's ever really been tested for herpes, so everyone's herpes status is kind of on the table. Love you, miss you, hope you're doing well. Extra help in the description box. See you guys next time.